Hey, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jamsis, your favorite neighborhood aggro player. Just don't look at what I'm picking. But yeah, to celebrate off the new year, I'm going to be showcasing one of the new drafts that I like to pick recently. Someone from my guild recommended it, and it's where you pick a lot of books, and then you pick Conquerlilias and DJB, and then you just pick Roy, and then you win the game. Allegedly. Allegedly. I think there's a lot of very good strengths to it. Like it's very good against the Destina Arrowell kind of standard player. It's good into like Sandguy, and it's very flexible. Like, you don't have to pick Roy, but there's definitely like a few weaknesses that you'll see that comes up. Like if they pre-ban Steny or they pick Steny, your book holders are kind of limited because not a lot of the book holders aren't very neutral. Like sure you can pick Ida, like Sylvan Sage Vivian or whatever, but they aren't super neutral and they invite really annoying picks. Like you'll see that if you pick like you'll see me picking Sylvan Sage Vivian and then you'll see like everyone and their mom suddenly picking Solitaria and it's so annoying. Anyway, in the first match, it's going pretty decent, but since my opponent actually pre-banned Conquerlilias, I ended up picking A.Ras to be my second Roy enabler just in case I had to pick one. And because he's like a standardish pick that makes people feel safe. But my A.Ras is built very interestingly. Yeah, I'll just put it at that. But basically, he's around 250 speed with 100 effectiveness. And he's built purely just to enable Roy. Or like, he can even enable Steny, honestly. Like, if he lands a death break on any regular unit, they're most likely going to die. So going to the first match, the pre-ban was pretty weird. I mean, the post-ban. I didn't expect my opponent to actually ban the A.Ras. I didn't think they would be that threatened by it, to be honest. But I can see why. This Landy's pretty fast. She's in like the 240, 250 range. And if my opponent let A.Ras go through, my Roy would have cut anyway. But basically, this is the setup of the draft. So Conquerlilias threatens speed contest. So a lot of people, especially if you like slam down your first pick like an ape, will kind of assume that your speed is pretty good. Because when I see my opponent first pick Conquerlilias, I'm kind of like forced to respect that it has a real possibility of being like 310, especially once you get to the higher brackets. So that deters a lot of people from speed contesting you, and I think that's one of the biggest strengths. But yeah, you get to see like look how fun this is. Roy just gets a soul burn twice, and my opponent's dead. And since Bryce Area is on my team, because my opponent didn't ban it for whatever reason, I'm free to just kill off Charlotte, and I feel kind of bad. But at the same time, I really don't. My opponent, I guess, didn't read the patch notes and doesn't realize he can't res with Bryce Area. So we're just like kind of sitting here like, what now? But my opponent like finally gets the memo and it's kind of sad. And I feel kind of dirty, but not that much. Not that much. It's all for the points. Anyway, we're going into the next match and my opponent pre-bans Conquerlilias again. And I'll just say that Conquerlilias is a really common pre-ban lately because a lot of people put the best speed gear on her. So people gear like the other speed openers. So it's like the three speed contesters that are very popular right now are Leica, Faithless Litica, and Conquerlilias. So it's basically Conquerlilias plus 2 Guiding Light anti-Zeo picks, which is like a whole other issue in itself. But anyway, I pick DJB and I pick Para, my only other 300 speed opener that I have currently. I have a 100k crafting math and I'm trying to gear Leica to see if I can make her work, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I slept on DJB for the longest time because I thought it was kind of garbo, because my gear is kind of garbo. So I couldn't really make it work too well. But now that I gave him some of my best speed gear, especially since I don't use like DN and Amelia anymore, he's very useful. Like he's good into a lot of standard matches. Like he's good against like FCC, SCROL, and he's good into like how a lot of anti cleaves like Sage Ball rely on like CC. So the way that he pushes and gives immunity, he's also politics proof for that matter, unless they are on violin, in which case it gets a little sketchy. But anyway, I pick Soul and Sage Vivian as my safe book holder, as you do, when Steny is taken, and my opponent is going for a pretty interesting draft. Like, I'm surprised they went for a SCRL plus made into DJB, but it's a pretty safe answer. So my opponent picks Faptain here, and I actually end up picking Ida because Ida threatens his draft in a way where Para has a real chance of outspeeding his Leica, or like, a good Para would. My Para's not that good. So it forces him to ban Ida because if I ban his Leica or something else and Ida is able to go through, then she's able to CR manipulate my team and push Roy to the front, even though that's going to happen anyway. My opponent's Leica is faster than my Para, which is like not too surprising. My Para is like literally flat 300 speed now. And she's kind of forced to S3 and pray that she can actually debuff my DJB. But my DJB has like solid ER, especially with Bastion. And luckily we are able to resist. So the match is already kind of donezo. This is like a very disgusting combo if you get it off. Basically, where Roy is just super, super balanced in the sense that he can solo most standard teams just by like double soul burn into his S3. And the speed tuning is at the point where my Sylvan Sage Vivian, who is on lifesteal, just has a book, is able to give him crit damage buff. So the damage coming out right now is omega disgusting. And yeah, it's very fun. I recommend that if you have the gear for your tier, you try it out because it's kind of like a stopgap for most asterisk standard teams. And I delete my opponent's team, and once again, I should feel bad, but it was like kind of fun at the same time. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah. Oh, that is something I want to try for the New Year's. I've noticed from watching my videos back, I say a lot of filler words like so, uh, and I'm trying to reduce the amount I say those words. So if you notice me taking like longer pauses, it's because I'm trying not to do that as much because it makes me sound really unintelligent. And like I am really unintelligent, but like other people don't need to know that. Again, my opponent picks Conquerlilias, which is really annoying. So I end up picking Para, as you do, and I pick DJB. And this is one of the things that I don't really like about this draft is that it kind of wants you to have Specter, DJB, and Conquerlilias, like 1, 2, 3 picks, but those are all very contested. DJB not that much, but the other two are like really contested and very often pre-banned or like even first picked. So that's like kind of something sketchy I don't like about the build. But I just have to pick replacements. I pick Para to replace Conquerlilias, and I'm able to pick up Steny, which is like pretty surprising. But my opponent doesn't really have any DPS threats right now, so I feel really safe in picking this Roy, but I think this was a mistake in hindsight. But it's kind of like the struggle. Like if you pick Roy during the 3-4 phase, this is where like some of the counters start to come out. Like Karina is a really annoying one. Like she's actually good against this type of aggro / cleave, SSB, Shu, Ram. Like basically all the annoying counter water units start coming out, and that's not the best. But if you also pick it up in the 5, then it gets post banned, which is not what I'm going for. So it's kind of like a trade-off of what you want to happen. I honestly think that this draft, like the combination of Conquerlilias or like a fast opener plus DJB, is like very good into a lot of drafts. Like you could easily pick like strays or other like slower standard killers. Like I'm honestly experimenting with Giselle too, because I pulled two Giselle copies because she's like the collab unit that I personally found the most like fun, but she requires like whale tier gear that I do not have. So like anyway, my opponent picks Bryceria and Landy, but honestly I'm not too scared about either of those. So I just pick Ida, and my opponent surprisingly bans DJP. So I guess they were like really confident in their Conquerlilias' speed, but you know, Para being fair and balanced with 128 base speed, like what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, I S2 on Bryce area just to make sure that she can't get immortality, but I think that was a mistake in hindsight because of the restrict, you aren't able to push, like, I'm not able to push Conquerlilias back anymore. So if she resisted the stun here, I think I had a real possibility of losing. But luckily, as you will see, the stun goes through and we're able to push up safely. And Conquerlilias isn't able to do anything. And now we just get to see Roy being disgusting. Like, I don't think I'll ever get tired of this unit. And my opponent just like taps out. Like, I usually, one annoying thing about me is that I don't like building collab units. Like, the exception is Amelia. And yeah, I think just Amelia is the only collab unit I have built. But I think I will have to make an exception for Roy too, because he was graced for the longest time, but I have the Molus to plus 15 him, and I guess I will because he's actually really fun to use. And he single handedly dismantles a lot of standard teams. And in the next match, we're up against Lensama. I'm pretty sure this guy is a legend player. Like, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm like pretty sure this guy is a legend player. He bans Conquerlilias, which is like I told you, like it's a really common pre-ban right now, especially since a lot of people place the best speed gear on, like they put their most cracked gear on Conquerlilias because she's just really flexible. Like if you pick Conquerlilias, if they speed contest you, you can race them. If they don't pick standard, you can. If they pick standard, you can just play standard, or like you can tank down with Conquerlilias. Like she's just like that flexible, so I can see why she's pre-ban, but it's just really annoying. Anyway, my opponent picks like pretty surprising picks. Like this draft of like Charlotte so early is not something you see too often. Landy is something you see pretty often, but I just thought my opponent was setting up for a Roy pick, especially with the Leica. So I just picked Roy myself, and I picked Bryceria because she is really good against his other two DPSs. But we just have to hope that this Landy isn't a speed Landy, but it looks like it is. It looks like it's like a 280 speed Landy, which is very annoying. I wish I could build one because she's a damage dealing CR pusher that isn't Closer Charles, so it doesn't like scream like I'm going to cleave your ass. But you know, the gear requirement's kind of high, which is why I can't do it right now. But we're just going to try anyway. We just have to pray that I can kill Landy and Forehead Girl. Timely man. I forgot Charlotte's name. I think in hindsight, this is actually a mistake. I think I should have just S3'd and just went for the kill on Landy and Charlotte, to be honest. But, you know, hindsight is 2020, and I can see why I did this. I did this so I didn't push Arrowell up any more than I had to. But it works out okay-ish. Like, the Arrowell CR push, like, really disincentivized me from popping Landy out of stealth and just killing her. And since Charlotte also pops herself up the CR bar if you hit her, that is something that made me not want to hit her either. And because Escort is like a fair and balanced defensive buff, and Charlotte got a defense buff from me S1ing her, she actually does survive. So I'm forced to S3 her with Stenny. Like, I actually know that this Landy is about to kill my Specter too. It's just that the Charlotte was about to eviscerate me first, so I had to like deal with her and just pray that Landy didn't get enough fighting spirit or whatever. But as you'll see here, Landy not only crits my Roy, it like completely bypassed my Roy's shield from A.Ras that they should have gotten. I think it was because I didn't have enough molas into Roy's S2 at the time, so that was kind of an L. But basically, I'm card coping. Like I'm thinking like, oh, maybe GJB and A.Ras can clutch out this game. Like it has a decent chance. Like Leica by herself does not do too much damage, and lane D is pretty low from all the AoE. And since my A.Ras is pretty fast at like 252, like he's not gonna get lapped too hard. So I'm coping. Like this is like hold the copium. But yeah, and see like lane D hits her S3 like through elemental disadvantage, and it's just pretty unlucky. But I think I can do it. Luckily, we do get a crit. I don't really think it mattered, but we are able to hit this Landy for all she's got. And now it's just a Leica versus Ross 1v1. And while I was filming this, like this was like one of the weirdest matches I've ever played, to be honest. Where I'm soul burning Ross to get the immunity buff. And yeah, you're just watching like the weirdest the weirdest 1v1 in history where Leica's trying to kill an A.Ras before the game ends. But yeah, luckily the immunity stays on. Like it didn't hit anyway, but I am able to finish. I should have pressed S3 here, and so I could have had that anime finisher to this match. But we'll take that W when we can. That was not a match I was expecting to win, like dead ass, but it's fine. Anyway, since there was a lot of footage of me being a cringe cleaver in this video, this is a time of the video where I can showcase some of the weaknesses to this draft. There's quite a few. Like I told you, like my opponent here pre-banned Specter Tenebria, so I'm forced to pick Sylvan Sage Vivian as like my safe, neutral speed, not speed contester, book holder. And Sylvan Sage Vivian comes with a lot of caveats, where she's safe, she doesn't get one shot, but she invites like Solitarias in, she invites Rimurus in, which is not something you really want to fight into. And Sylvan Sage Vivian also invites in Karina, which is something I did not think about at the time. But you'll see why Karina's good into this draft. It also attracts a lot of SSB drafts, and Roy really relies on having his passive to have his S1 do like nutty damage. And that is not something I expected. I expected him to do like comparable damage, but like if you see the numbers, they are not good. And Sylvan Sage Vivian's big weakness is that she's a pretty low tempo unit in that sense. Like Steny can soul burn into one unit and S3 and like maybe one shot it, or like she can stun it. But Sylvan Sage Vivian doesn't really do that. Like her damage on S3, like especially the first S3, isn't too big or overwhelming. And the way that Solitaria invalidates her in a draft, but you're forced to ban other things because you kind of need Roy to do all the heavy lifting, is kind of oof. I'm still going to try my best though, like, but spoiler alert, like this does not end well for me. I push back Solitaria just so I can have enough push up, and at this point I'm like still coping, like, oh, maybe I can still win this, like it doesn't look that bad. And I push up with DJB here, but you'll see what I mean. I make a big mistake here because I don't play against a lot of Karinas. Well, I didn't. I do now. I play against a lot of Karinas nowadays, but basically, I shouldn't have picked... No, I shouldn't have pressed Sylvan Sage Vivian's S3 here because it gives Karina like a 50% push. So what I should have done is I either should have provoked her or I should have just not pressed S3 with Sylvan Sage Vivian. But if you didn't know, Karina has splash damage, like LQC, on her S3, and she has her artifact. So she one-shots my fucking Roy. And then since Sylvan Sage Vivian doesn't actually have any stacks of her passive, she's like a sitting duck too. So like that's kind of an L from that match. Oof. But yeah. that's it for today's video. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and look forward to all the weird non-cleave comps I'll bring to you guys in the new year. Thanks for watching.